right, everybody, we're going to get started in 2 minutes. Okay, Chair Kafusi will be here soon. I'm going to go ahead and get started for her. The time is 11:36. It's December 8th, Thursday, 2022. And we'll just start with our welcome and our call to order. And Eric, I'll have you go ahead and start with introductions. Do you want to kind of introduce yourself and we'll go around? Okay.
Good to see everybody here today. My name's Eric Ellis, Executive Director of the Lake Commission.
Good morning, everyone. I'm John Mackey. I'm the Director of the Division of Water Quality.
Good morning, Chris Carnes, Saratoga Springs City Council.
Good morning, Lon Lott, Alpine City Council.
Terry Peterson, Orem City Council.
Roland Lundberg, Mayor of Lincoln City.
Hey, Julie Fulmer, Mayor of Vineyard. Sure.
Gene Shawcroft, General Manager for Central Utah Water Conservancy District.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. We also have a lot of people joining online. Thank you for joining us today. I am going to go ahead and move on to our action items. We have approving the governing board minutes from September 15th, and then we have reviewing the budget report from September to October. Eric, did you want to talk about the budget, or should I go ahead and do an approval?
We could move to an approval. There's the budget, everything's on budget. We have a couple comments later in the meeting to discuss kind of what we're going to do towards the end of our budget year, but these are the 2 monthly reports that nothing to report.
Excellent. Then can I get a motion for both item A and B?
Chair, I move to approve both action items A and B on the agenda today, dated today.
Thank you. And can I get a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll move on to our Utah Lake Water Quality Study, and Director Mackey and his team will give us a quick update.
I'll get it on the way back. You are set. Thanks, Sam. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'll give you a quick update on this year's progress on the Utah Lake Water Quality Study. Scott Daly, who is our project manager on this project, is very sick right now. And so he's not able to join us. Either that or fresh powder, and he's out enjoying the Utah winter. Just an overview of what we'll be talking about today. I'll give you an overview. We'll talk about some of the accomplishments, the role of the Utah Lake Authority going forward, and some of the next steps. So the overarching goal for the Utah Lake Water Quality Study is to improve and protect the recreational, aquatic life, and agricultural beneficial uses of Utah Lake. And our purpose is to determine what a healthy lake looks like and can be, and to develop a comprehensive water quality improvement strategy for the lake. Some of the key objectives is to bring good science to the table, and so that we can inform you all and the communities around the lake in forming good policy for the lake. Part of this is to bring policy level planning tools to decision makers for evaluation of the lake, and also to help find adaptive strategies that can be implemented along in line with the ability to invest in improvements in the lake in conjunction with your growth and water quality objectives for the lake. And ultimately, we want to support with our science from the study an integrated and regional planning work for good stewardship of the lake. So a note on study progress. I think we've seen this tracking forward in time where the initial phase of project work is completed. Lots of data and information have been gathered and conversations had. Nutrient criteria framework was approved several years ago, and strategic research has been conducted. And I'll point out, I don't know if I have a pointer here, Sam, or not. Do I? Oh, which screen am I? So strategic research, a lot of work has been done, and we'll identify some of that work a little bit later on. We're still at the tip out there where there's still some work that needs to be done, and a lot of this involves work on atmospheric deposition, and it's been a real challenge for the science panel to sort through lots and lots of data and studies. This is important because it's a key part of the modeling effort in understanding the inputs of nutrients into the lake. And without a good understanding and a good assessment of the loading of nutrients into the lake, one of our modeling efforts is kind of stalled. So the science panel has been working overtime, diligently, weekly meetings, to get to the end here, and we hope that we're getting close. That'll allow us to take the lake modeling effort forward. A lot of work has been done developing criteria, but until the models are really done, we can't complete that work. Phase 3 is the implementation phase, and what implementation means is what are maybe the physical tools, what are the means by which we can accomplish improvement of the lake. And there's lots of different things that we will all need to work on to improve the lake. And we'll go through some lists of those a little bit later as well. So we have been working on the implementation plan, and it's really important to get that completed near the end of 2023. We're going to have to work really hard. The science panel, steering committee will have to work hard to do that. We're a little bit behind with the studies, but it's really our goal to if not get implementation planning completed, to be very close to being done by the end of next year. Was there a question? I'm sorry. I'll continue. The framework for implementation planning has been developed and has been approved, adopted by the steering committee. Okay, some of the accomplishments of the steering committee were, as I just said, adopting the implementation planning framework, which is, it's a major accomplishment. A lot of work has been done to try to identify what can be done. What are the many tools? They may not all be good ideas, but getting all the ideas on the table and a framework for how they'll be evaluated has been completed. So that was a major accomplishment. Science panel updates. We lost 3 science panel members in the last year. They're still with us, but they have moved on for a variety of reasons. And another important accomplishment was working with the treatment facilities around the lake. There was interest in beginning to get a handle on what the costs might look for the communities around the lake to upgrade wastewater treatment facilities to a higher level. And I'll spend a little bit of time talking about that later as well. So science panel members, the 3 new members are Zach Onderrun. He's on the faculty with Brigham Young University. He's done quite a bit of work on the lake, doing some of the studies, contracting for some of the studies that have been done under our program. Thad Scott from Baylor University is a nutrient criteria specialist, and Tim Wool is an expert in the model, the lake model that we'll be using to evaluate all sorts of alternatives in the implementation phase of the project. So science panel accomplishments. These are many of the studies that have been completed for the project. And what's really important about these studies is they provide information that go into building the models that will describe the interactions between the watershed and the lake and the lake's water quality. And this information is also used to calibrate, if you will, to help calibrate the model as well, to make sure that when we start running scenarios using this model, looking at ideas for what can we implement to make beneficial changes to the lake, that the answers are right, that they're based on the best science that we have. Just because I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, the source assessment work has been a really interesting amount of work, gathering a lot of data about the watershed. And you'll see the level of detail that goes into this, but it's really been gratifying, I think, to discover the amount of good information that's available out there throughout the state, from universities and from state agencies, to populate this model. And it's really good to see, because having this level of information will help us have accurate estimates of the flows and the nutrient loads and nutrient cycling and things like that that go on in the lake. And all these studies, not only have we learned a lot about the interactions and the goings on inside the lake, whether it's chemistry or biology and so forth, but it's also, as I said, really important for us to be able to calibrate our models. So a big effort this year was developing the watershed model. Now there's 2 models that we're developing in this project. One is the watershed model, and the other is the lake model. We're able to go ahead and proceed with the watershed model. And what it does is it looks at land uses. It starts with looking at land uses. And each of these little numbered polygons, if you will, represent, a hydrologic unit. And they have various different land types, and different land uses are characterized by the colors here. And with an understanding of what comes out of each of these pucks in terms of the nutrient flow, we're also able in the future to look at what if we were to make changes. For example, if agricultural best management practices were implemented in the upper watershed, what does that mean? What does that do to the inputs to the lake? And any number of other scenarios that might relate to management efforts by the cities or by the Utah Lake Authority or others can be examined by changing the inputs from those HUCs into the model. So, and, in summary, the bullets, the idea of this model is to establish land use-based flow and nutrient pathways, to understand those, to identify the nutrient inputs by their sources, by their area, by land uses, and then to simulate source reductions. And that's what I was just talking about. We can go in and in each one of these areas, identify management practices that can change the outcome. And then ultimately, I don't know, I want to say play that game. That may not be fair, but the game of where's the best bang for the buck? What changes, what management practices, what improvements can be made in these individual areas to provide, the most economical, cost-effective, beneficial improvements to, in this case, inputs to the lake. So it's a tool to evaluate future best management practices, and will be linked to the lake model. So, and this is just I think you all understand. I mean, there are all these different sorts of activities that happen across the watershed. Some are more concentrated. Agriculture is in certain areas, and municipal activities and industrial activities are in other areas. But each of these has an input for each of the polygons in the watershed model that we can adjust to evaluate changes. So when we come to put it together, this cartoon is, and I'm really sorry about I guess you'd call it a typo, the misplaced W in the green box on the upper left of the green boxes. That's POTW, Publicly Owned Treatment Works. So what this cartoon describes is, one, the interaction between the watershed model, which relates the land uses, growth, hydrology, and pollutants to lake nutrient inputs and outputs, connects that model with the lake model that relates material loadings, environmental conditions, physical chemical activity within the lake, and its ecological state or health. And then ultimately, the results from the lake model informs the community, so that the community has an opportunity to relate water quality objectives, criteria, standards, if you will, to your needs and to the benefits that you expect, as well as the costs of improving the lake. Around the watershed and lake model is a dashed line, and this is sort of where I see the separation, if you will, or the boundary between the true science, just working on science to provide knowledge, and policymakers who want to be informed by science. And in applying the model, policymakers can look at changes that might be made in agriculture, municipal, industrial, non-point source, for example, all these other inputs to be able to affect a lake condition and state that's most beneficial and of course affordable. So I'm going to talk now about the cost study, and the cost study was a collaboration between the steering committee and the Wasatch Front Water Quality Council, which represents publicly owned treatment works in the Wasatch Front. And we got together, we had a couple of meetings scoping out what this cost analysis would be. And in the end, the work was done by Wasatch Front Water Quality Council, completed in November 2022. And the main question was, and this might be getting a little bit ahead, but the main question was, is if the solution is to ask treatment plants to control nutrients more, then what's the cost? Because, they're one of the big managers of pollution, right? They're one of the most significant managers and really the most effective managers of pollution and nutrients into the lake. So to begin to get a handle on what's this cost, at least from this one mechanism for improvement or for control, got together with the 6 cities that operate, 6, right? 6 cities that have treatment plants that discharge near to or directly into the lake, and ran some cost scenarios. And so this was a really high level cost estimate. You know, it's always a little bit dangerous putting big numbers out because they get remembered. You know, you can consider this, and the report indicates that this is an order of magnitude estimate. It's not based on any estimates of material quantities or anything more than just sort of a process analysis. So it was all done through a cost estimating model. So the first step is just to figure out what's the baseline. What do we have today that would we be building from? Because the costs, you know, are additive when you use a model like this. So what the baseline condition represents is the infrastructure that is either already in the ground or that is going in the ground today and to be completed by 2025. And then if you were to add filters, for example, to control phosphorus to a lower level than the current effluent limit, which is 1 milligram per liter of phosphorus, what's the additional cost that goes into that? And then if on top of filters, because they kind of have to be there to do the next step of meeting a higher level of nitrogen control, what's the next cost for that? And then finally, limits of technology. And we considered that reverse osmosis. So this is really producing sort of above and beyond drinking water quality. But to be able to get an idea of the range of costs, we included that alternative as well. So this table shows the breakdown of the costs that were derived using this model for each of the 6 treatment plants. Is it 6? It's 7, isn't it? Yeah, it's 7. So the way to read this is the baseline cost is current cost. That's the value of your assets, of the treatment plant assets today. If you were to add filters, you add $4.7 million in the case of cost to Salem. If you were to also add biological nutrient removal for nitrogen control, for a higher level of nitrogen control, the additional cost, that's including the cost of the filters, is $8.7 million. And then going all the way to RO, you would add $15.6 million to the 22.2 on Salem. So the totals are down at the bottom, but I think that it's maybe a little bit easier to see those same totals here on this slide. So the value of the current infrastructure using the model was estimated to be $774 million. And again, that includes the improvements that are being constructed today. Adding filters for the 7 treatment plants in Utah County adds $432 million. Elevating the level of treatment to also include nitrogen controls, to a high level of nitrogen controls, adds $566 million to the current value. And adding reverse osmosis, almost $700 million. So big dollars there. And I meant to say this when I was talking about the modeling and the opportunity to look at changes in inputs. If I have any say in it, and Eric, I might have a little bit of say in it. The first scenario we're going to do is run the model for the current level of treatment. That's the 1 milligram per liter of phosphorus. It's in the current standard because it's not being met today. It's going to be met when the construction today is completed by 2025. So it's an interesting scenario. I hate to speculate, but one outcome could be, gosh, we're done. We hope that goes that way. So next steps. The next steps are, as I said before, wrap up the science work so that we can wrap up the strategic research work so that we can advance criteria development and implementation planning. Just briefly, going forward, we'll have the Utah Lake Authority overseeing our work instead of the commission. Yeah, my slide's blacked out too, up there on the first level. The authority will have regular updates on the project and request feedback from the steering committee. And really where that comes is through Eric. Eric is the co-chair of the steering committee, and he and I work together with the science panel and the steering committee. So that's the mechanism. That's the normal mechanism for feedback from the authority to the steering committee. The Utah Lake Authority has a review and approval authority over recommendations from the group. And then we'll work on water quality management planning and continuing to build implementation partnerships as the communities work together. I mean, we talked about this at the authority meeting recently where, communities all have ideas and they all have projects and plans, and making sure that we're not redundant in our efforts. We're not repeating efforts. We're not having overlapping efforts that are inefficient, that we're working together to find efficiencies in joining the communities and the partners. And that's my last slide. I'll take questions if I may, Madam Chair.
Thank you, John. Does anybody have any questions? And I guess Sam's watching online for us to make sure we don't miss any raised hands. Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 4. Item number 4 is the FFSL report on science management and policy event by Ben Steierman.
We do have Morgan Faulkner stepping in for Ben today. Thanks, Morgan.
Oh, okay.
No problem. So I'm Morgan Faulkner. I'm a lands coordinator at Forestry Fire and State Lands. Ben actually won an award this morning. That's why he's not here right now. So congrats to him. Sorry, you guys get me instead. Eric just wanted us to kind of do an overview of the Utah Lake Summit that we did in October. So I don't have any slides or anything today, just kind of wanted to go over how the night went and what our key takeaways were. So first off, the event we really wanted to put together because we'd seen other successful events like this, the Great Salt Lake Summit, for instance. The Watershed Symposium in Salt Lake City covers a lot of Great Salt Lake and Jordan River and occasionally Utah Lake Summit or Utah Lake topics. And then we've had other Utah Lake Summits as well, but we thought as the landowner, we just wanted to get together some of those government voices and get some just facts and science out on the table for the public to see. So we kind of started off the night with a talk from Representative Stratton and then also from JB Barnes, our director, who introduced Brian Steed, who used to be the director of natural resources, but now is the director of the Land, Water, and Air Institute at Utah State University. His talk was really great. It kind of talked about how there's a gap between academia and the government right now, and how we can kind of bridge that gap and work together to have solutions for Utah Lake or really for any body of water or natural resource issues. One of the topics that came up was the Great Salt Lake Strike Team. That's something that he brought up as an idea for Utah Lake. So the strike team, for instance, it's just a bunch of academics, people from water quality, water resources, our division, other people in DEQ and DNR, and just a lot of voices to get together to create solutions. So that's something that would be great for Utah Lake as well. We also had a a few talks about water quality, water resources, and water rights. You guys have probably all heard the talk from John Mackey before about water quality, and then also Candace talking about water resources and how that affects the Great Salt Lake as well. But we got a lot of really good feedback on the water rights talk. As you guys know, water rights issues are a really hot topic in Utah right now. That's something that we wanted to highlight and just kind of go over the complex issues that go into Utah Lake management and what a job that water rights has right now. It's really tricky, all of the stuff they have to manage. So thanks to all three of those directors for coming and talking as well. The Utah Lake Authority also did a talk, just kind of going over the transition and how they're going to partner with us in the future. Thanks, Eric, for doing that. I think that was super valuable for the public. The public isn't really involved in a lot of those day-to-day conversations about how we're going to be moving forward with the authority. So I think that was really valuable for those that aren't involved every day. And lastly, a talk that I was really excited about was the Sandy Beach Development Project. So we partnered with Utah County to provide some funding and really increase the recreation infrastructure at Sandy Beach. So I don't know if you guys have been there recently, but beforehand it was really just a bunch of weeds and frag and brush and olive. People were driving out on the lakeshore and damaging the lake bed every time there were low water levels. We knew that we just needed to do something better out there because people are definitely using the land over there. So Utah County and FFSL got together and created a plan to create bathrooms and create a loop that has some pavilions and picnic tables. There's a better gate there now so people can't drive out onto the lakeshore. So we provided some of the funding and then Utah County did all of the legwork. So thank you so much to Utah County and to the commissioner for talking about that project. So really overall, I think just talking and highlighting those projects and the good work going on with water quality and water resources, et cetera, was a huge part of the night. I think something that I really benefited from was just talking to members of the public that were there. For instance, some Saratoga Springs residents had showed up just to see what was going on, and getting to talk to those people and let them know what was going on and listen to their recommendations and what their issues were with the lake was super valuable. So with that, I really hope we can do stuff like this in the future, and we hope to. If anybody has any recommendations on future talks or even locations that we could do that in the future, we would gladly take them. So happy to answer any questions you guys had about the event as well.
It sounds like it was a great event. This is Mayor Cavusi speaking. I am actually reading the autobiographies of all the mayors in Provo from the beginning of Eric Ems in 1847 and fighting over water. Isn't every single mayor's time they served. So that's definitely the common thread through all 44 mayors is in every write-up, the fight over water rights and water in Provo and water, who owns it. And anyways, it's an ongoing and it's historical apparently. So it was fascinating and I'm in the middle of it. I'm not done with it. Huh. Does anybody else have any questions or? Okay, great. We will. Thank you so much for giving us the update. Thanks, Morgan. All right, our next item is Melissa Stamp, but she was jumping from meeting to meeting. I'm not sure if she's online yet. Are you online yet, Melissa?
I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, there you are. Yes, you are.
And I literally just joined, so like perfect timing within a minute.
Well, we knew, and so we planned it that way because we wanted to make sure you were right up on time. I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you to do your presentation.
Okay. It does look like I'm able to share my screen, so I'll go ahead and do that. Are you guys seeing that okay? Yes. I'm seeing some heads nod. We're good. Okay, excellent. So this is going to be brief. I don't have really any slides prepared, but I wanted to, and I really appreciate the opportunity to check in with you guys on the Provo River Delta Restoration Project. I don't think I'm going to take the time to do a lot of background because I think most of the folks are familiar with the project, but I will give you maybe just start. So this is our website, provo-river-delta.us. Project map, just for an overview, is a good way to kind of just be reminded of the general scope of the project. If I can get it to load. It's very big for some reason. So yeah, the project involves diverting the majority of the Provo River's flow north into this constructed habitat, lowering that north half of Skipper Bay Dike and allowing the lake to reoccupy an area closer to its historic shoreline. The area used to be Skipper Bay, and there's a variety of recreation features, trail system additions, and that sort of thing. And the project's being done to facilitate June sucker recovery. I will go back to our homepage and just give you kind of an update on our latest news. As you can see here, our latest news highlight is that we are nearing the point where we can divert the river's flow into the new delta. You'll see kind of this, it looks very white on this air photo that we just had flown last month. We've completed almost all of this portion of the channel, which is what we consider the river zone, where there still is some gradient to the river before it hits kind of this backwater effect of the lowered Skipper Bay Dike. And the reason it shows up as kind of white looking is because that's where we have placed cobble and gravel substrate in the bed of the river, because there will be that energy and that flow rather than just leaving it as sort of a dirt bottomed bank and bed of the channel. We've done a lot of those bioengineered willows. For those of you who've been out to the site for a tour, you're probably familiar with those. So we still have like one little land bridge plug left here to access this part of the project area that we'll have to open up. And then as of today, we're probably closer to about here. I think we only have about 150 feet more of channel to excavate. We'll be leaving obviously a plug in the existing bank of the river until we actually put the water in, but we are getting quite close, which is super exciting. I do want to emphasize that the project is still closed to the public. It's still an active construction site and will be under construction throughout all of 2023. So we're getting close to opening the project to the fish, but it will not yet be open to the people when we connect that water. We also, recent efforts have really focused on a lot of revegetation work. And anyone is welcome to visit our website and read these articles more thoroughly. We also have a fall newsletter that some of you probably received via email. That's also there to check out. And I was gonna maybe just share a few photos from our photo gallery. So this is that hydro mulch, so the sprayed wood fiber mulch that is dyed green, so you can see where it's being deposited. We planted about 70,000 native plants in November and placed native seed on a whole bunch of acres of the project, everything that was disturbed this year. It's the third year that we've done late fall revegetation effort. So really putting a lot of work into that planting effort. You can see here this giant hydro mulcher sprayer that was really helpful this year to be able to access some of those islands. We've started stranding ourselves because of all the water and the channels in the project area. So these are just some slides highlighting that revegetation effort. That was how we had to get some of the plants to some of the islands. And everything in there is groundwater right now, so we're not connected directly to the lake, partly because the lake is so low. And we have not yet diverted any of the river water into the project area. So those are some things you can check out. That's kind of the cobble that you're seeing on that air photo. And these are the willow banks with that bioengineered coconut fiber lifts going in. And we've had a lot of great volunteer help along the way with these. And I do also want to let you guys know, if any of you are website visitors for this, We've also added under latest news, a river and trails update page that we added when we had to close a section of the Provo River Parkway Trail in mid-September because we were starting construction on that east side of the now completed Lakeview Parkway roadway project. And so we have a trail closure map on here, and we've posted some signage along the trail with a QR code that brings people to this page. And we'll be updating it. We update our website, the main landing page, about every month. This will be less frequently, just as some condition changes with like how people are able to experience the area. So these are the portions of the trail that are closed. There's some detours available with Lakeview Parkway now open. So I just wanted to make you aware of this page as well as our main homepage. And again, some of those interruptions will, that closure, that portion of the trail will remain closed at least into next spring and possibly intermittently in the summer. We'll have to see where we're at. We have a lot to get done before that point. So we are sort of shifting to affecting more of the existing river channel as we're getting ready to divert the river. In terms of the diversion day itself, heard from many of you that you're like, oh, is there going to be some sort of an event or celebration when we shift the river into the new delta? And we are currently planning on January 26th. It is a Thursday, early afternoon. The details are still very much in flux. We have a lot of cooks in the kitchen and a lot of sort of differing plans. It's a weather is challenging that time of year, and we're kind of still figuring out exactly what we're doing. Those of you who are interested, some of you may have already gotten a save the date invite. We sent that out to kind of a subset of folks, but it will be open to everyone. And on the website, if you're not already, the best way to hear from us will be putting out more details in early January. Make sure you put your information here on the contact me list and say, please add me to your mailing list, because we'll be sending a notification to that whole mailing list as we get closer to that date. Yeah, and just again, emphasizing we're opening to the fish on that date, but it'll still be a closed to the public area. We have a lot of recreation features to build. We have the berm to build up and the new parking area and that sort of thing. So it'll be 2024 before the project is fully open to the public. And I think that's most of what I wanted to share, and definitely happy to take questions.
We have a question.
What is your website?
Provo River Delta.us. That was an easy question.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I have one question. So will there be other areas around the lake where you will take this similar approach?
I couldn't hear that if that was a question for me.
I apologize. My microphone was not turned on. Is this project that you've done, looking forward timeline, are you going to be repeating these types of efforts in other locations?
Sorry. Nothing to this scale that I can imagine on the horizon of our agency. I really do hope that this project inspires and our agency would be interested potentially in partnering with any similar efforts around the lake that could improve habitat conditions, provide improved outdoor recreation opportunities, et cetera, at some of the other tributaries entering the lake. Through the June Sucker program, there is a project, there's been 2 projects done on Hobble Creek, where we're also able to deliver some intentional in-stream flow water to support June sucker recovery and ecological health. And that is an area that I know there's talk about doing some more work on. Springville City is interested potentially, and there's some NRCS interest there. Gosh, something this magnitude, this is a massive project, and it's been talked about for 20 years. It's been actively worked on with a NEPA process that started in 2011. You know, I don't know that we'd ever be, our agency probably would not be able to put the money together to do something on this scale again. But I do hope it's going to be a really exciting year as we see what the fish do, and as we're able to monitor how the flows are able to work in this new, more natural habitat. And I do hope that we can inspire some other projects as people are able to get out there and get excited about it. Does that answer your question? Hopefully.
Yes, sounds like it'll be a great model and you could be a resource.
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions? I know we are all just counting down. This is like she stated, I've been mayor for 5 years and we've met and talked about it every month for 5 years. And so it's exciting and we look forward to that day when it finally gets done. And I'm just will add, our Parks and Rec department is doing a beautiful park right there in the parking lot and maintaining, and have really jumped in and have become great partners. And I think that's really going to help with your Delta Restoration project.
Yes, absolutely. There are a lot of entities on in this meeting that have been hugely helpful partners, and we've really enjoyed working through the process, and it's exciting to see that progress and how close we're getting. And I also want to shout out the Utah Lake Commission / Authority for all your guys' help, kind of particularly with the communication side. You know, this website update I just shared with you was posted on your social media outlets, along with Division of Wildlife, who will inherit the property and be managing that habitat long-term. Utah County will be managing the recreation features, and Provo City has a big part as well with that Delta Gateway Park and some of the other areas that we've worked so much together on around Lakeview Parkway. So yeah, huge thanks to everybody's contributions.
Mayor, I had a question. I was just wondering if we were planning a commission field trip. We had one, I guess it was last year or the year before, and I'd like to know if we're planning on an update before we turn into the authority.
That's a great
as
question.
an on-site visit.
What do you think, Eric? And
I had planned to send the invite out to our board so that everyone on January 26th could come and be chased down the riverbed by the incoming water. They probably won't do that.
That'd be awesome, actually.
But to see the river
Be let out
and let into that project, I think would be a fun time to get folks down.
Wonderful. Can you remind me again what time that would be?
Afternoon is all we have at this point.
All right.
Okay. There's a lot of excitement and interest in the air now that we're getting so close. So thank you for all your hard work. And this is going to be a huge accomplishment for multiple entities.
Yeah, hope to see you out there in January, and we can always arrange for a governing board tour another time, maybe when it's warmer. You don't have to worry about the snow so much. Although Eric, in the past, we've seemed to hit either the 100-degree days or.
I'm telling you, that last one was like 110.
It was rough.
Freezing or 100. Those are our options, it seems.
Maybe 2023 will be our year.
Perfect. Thank you again for all your hard work. It's been really fun working with you.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
All right, let's go ahead and move on then to item number 6, which is the DWR Utah Lake Fisheries Management Plan progress. And Chris Crockett will be presenting on this.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I was hoping to share a PowerPoint if I could. Might be a little more exciting than just listening to me talk all the time. There we go. You guys should be seeing a title slide. Is that correct?
Yes.
I can't see too many head nods, but somebody
yes, we see it.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate that. We just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on some of our efforts with the Utah Lake Fisheries Management Plan. what we're calling our advisory council. And maybe just a little bit of background for those of you that don't know me. My name is Chris Crockett. I'm the Regional Aquatics Manager out of our Springville, Utah office. So our office oversees many of the waters here, Utah Lake, June sucker management, et cetera. And I have a pretty varied background working with both the sport fish and on the June sucker side of things. So I like to think I can do a pretty good job of championing both the native species as well as the angling and sport fish opportunities. But just advance the slide. If you can't see it, somebody let me know. But as you probably know, we just recently downlisted June sucker, and really this was the catalyst for some of the extra work that the division has done. Understandably, a lot of the work the past few years has focused primarily on June sucker recovery. But with the downlisting, we thought that it was probably time we start looking a little bit more holistically at the lake and what we could do for the lake in terms of angling opportunities, recreational opportunities, but also continue June sucker recovery. So I think everybody's probably aware of our authority right now for the lake. We consult with Fish and Wildlife Service on June sucker matters and any matters that might impact June sucker recovery. But we are trying to plan for the day when the Division of Wildlife Resources has full authority over the lake and that we have successfully delisted June sucker. So we're trying to think through what that will look like, but also, quite frankly, provide some of those goals and objectives and assurances going forward that we do have an effective plan in place to continue the recovery of June sucker. So looking forward to our other options, but at the same time, making sure that Fish and Wildlife Service and June sucker recovery team have a say in what the division will do once we take over that recovery. Current membership, you guys forgive me, I think you've seen this slide before, but it's probably worth mentioning again. We've got a pretty good multidisciplinary team on board. Many of these entities will be very familiar to you with anything having to do with Utah Lake. Perhaps some of the difference is we do have 3 angling representatives that represent various members, various constituents of anglers throughout Utah. There's not a clear Utah Lake angling group, if you will. So we did our search for an angler rep a little bit different than we've done in the past. And we essentially put out a job opening, if you will, send it out on social media, send it out through our other partners, et cetera, and just said, you know, we are looking for dedicated people to help represent the angling public. And we were asking for individuals to essentially provide us a resume. So I think we've got some really good representatives. Right now, we've got 3, Jeremy Curley, George Summers, and Rex Infiger. And those individuals are a pretty good mix of experience already working with some similar management teams, but also some fresh faces and new ideas, if you will. So we're pretty excited about the team. I will point out that the Utah Lake Commission does have a representative. Anyone from Utah Lake Commission is always welcome to join us, but Sam has been very helpful in keeping us on track and has had some great input through these few meetings that we've had thus far. We started in March and we've had about 7 meetings. That sounds like a lot. I have to look at that and go back through every time I read it, make sure it's not a typo. But we've had some good strides thus far. As you're probably aware, many of these initial meetings are just, quite frankly, determining why we're there, making sure we're all on the same page, developing our mission and vision statement, and then going through kind of some basic exercises to try to help get a snapshot of what the lake looks like right now, and also identify some of those strengths and goals to help, strengths and weaknesses to help set us up to move forward some draft goals and objectives for our plan. We have crafted our no longer draft, our final mission and vision statements. I'll let you guys read that. As you can probably tell, we did a little bit of a keyword exercise. They're a little bit wordy at times, but I think we really captured some of those keywords that we were wanting to include in our mission statement. You see collaboratively, sustainably, adaptively, et cetera. And you'll also see that our mission statement has a dual purpose of focusing on ways to improve sport fish or naturalized aquatic resources, but also continue June sucker recovery. The keyword there is foster June sucker recovery. Our final mission statement, you'll also kind of see that dual goal that we have there to make Utah Lake a destination for quality fishing opportunities, et cetera, and to also incorporate recovery of June sucker management. So I'm probably a little naive in saying I really don't think those two ideas are mutually exclusive. I'm a fisheries biologist that have worked with natives and sport fish and some native sport fish my entire life, and I really think that there's a lot of cohesion with the management of those two species and a lot that can be done to benefit both simultaneously. I should say, if there's any questions, you guys feel free to just kind of interrupt me as I go. I'm just trying to give you a little snapshot of what we've done thus far, so you'll understand kind of our process on how we've gotten to the point we are thus far. One of our key tools for any of these management teams is to put together a SWOT analysis. So it's a pretty common exercise where you identify the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats of the system. And really what this is designed to do is to help lay the groundwork for some of your future goals and objectives. Because truthfully, anything you identify as a strength, whether it's a popular white bass and catfish fishery, or it's June sucker recovery, these are all things that should be represented in your plan to either continue or to maintain or protect that strength. And anything from weaknesses to opportunities as threats should also be identified, because obviously if it's a threat, then you may have a goal or objective identified to help protect or turn that threat around, etc. So that really has led us to where we're at today with 11 draft goals. And I will say this very quickly, these are all draft goals. I think there was a mention earlier in talking about the water quality efforts on Utah Lake. Sometimes you just need to get these ideas out there. Do not hamper anyone. It may be a great idea, it may not be a great idea, but really facilitate that communication to let people discuss these ideas. Let's capture them and then develop a framework for scoring them or rating them or assessing these goals. So this is where we're at right now. We've got our draft 11 goals. I'll let everybody take a read on those, but I'll just kind of hit them. You see that there's quite a variety. We have managing family fishing opportunities, destination fishing opportunities. You'll see number 3, June sucker has its own standalone goal to continue to support recovery. We have goals related to habitat, to angler access, to water quality, to a monitoring program, catalyzing stakeholders, preventing aquatic invasive species, outreach, and then this last one, which is kind of our data gaps goal. So basically, if there's something we need to move forward, let's capture that. Let's have that as a goal so we don't just keep saying over and over again, oh, I don't know, and end up 10 years down the road not having identified that. So we have settled on a an assessment framework for essentially scoring all of these goals. I should say currently we do have several objectives with each one of these goals, and I don't mean to hide them from anyone. It just gets pretty lengthy when I lay out a table of 58 different objectives. But Sam does have access to this Google sheet that we are using to help score these. Sam, we could easily make a separate copy and share it with anyone who just wants to see where we're at right now. That being said, we are going through the process of each one of the members ranking these goals. And I just put a few in the bullets here. There's several others I did not identify, but just to give you a little bit of an idea, this is a Google Doc that has drop-down menus, drop-down scoring, where you can rate things such as how closely this objective aligns with the mission and vision statements, making sure, right off the bat, we're in our lane, we're on the right page. Rate the feasibility of accomplishing these. Also talking about what is the most important thing needed. Does it fall within DWR's jurisdiction? If not, whose jurisdiction is it in? Partners, etc. So some of these are actual scores. Others are basically capturing the keywords. So we, can compile these and see, when there's a specific objective, what was the most commonly mentioned partner, what was the least commonly mentioned partner, basically just to identify these individuals, these areas that, we may need to bring someone else on, we might not have the right area of expertise, etc. So that's currently where we're at, is ranking or assessing all of those. Our ultimate goal will essentially be to, identify those ones that need more help, those ones that don't fit, those ones that just need some extra expert opinions on them, etc., and move forward. So the group has done an outstanding job getting to this point, but I have to admit, I think the hard work is yet to come. So I always welcome feedback from the Utah Lake Commission. I always welcome Sam to, remind me when I need to give an update. So I appreciate the invite from Sam earlier in the week. There's several different ways you can help me. One is I'm just still in this process of trying to identify some of these some of these management documents that we may need to cite or reference when we are moving forward. For example, we don't claim to be the experts on water quality. We may not need to reinvent the wheel relative to water quality objectives. We may simply just need to cite a document and say, support this team in their efforts, etc. That being said, I think given our fisheries standpoint on this document, we also don't want to just blow it off. If there's new areas or new objectives that are worthwhile to include, I think it's our role as fishery managers to make sure we capture those because it obviously, many of these other management agencies are very important to the health of the fishery as well. So I guess it's a little bit of a struggle, if you will, on knowing where to write new material versus where to just cite existing management documents. So that's an area that Sam has already helped me in, and many other individuals on the Utah Lake Commission can help point us in the right direction. Also, we will be planning on providing a little bit more detailed overview of those goals and objectives after we as a team have had the opportunity to polish them up and assess them. We will take that on a tour, if you will, to some of our additional constituent groups. Most of the constituent groups that I deal with commonly are, angling groups, Rocky Mountain Anglers, TU, Blue Ribbon, etc. So I would welcome any suggestions from Utah Lake Commission members on what other constituent groups I should be reaching out to, others that I might have missed, whether they're established or whether it's just a matter of, for example, coming to a specific municipality that's interested to tell them more. And I would welcome any comments and suggestions today. I know you may not have time within the agenda and I want to honor that. But if there is anything, you all are always welcome to contact me. Sam has my contact information. And I would also welcome you to talk to Sam about any additional details associated with this team. And with that, I will just say our next meeting is coming up January 10th. And again, we do hope to compile some of that data and take it to some of our other constituent groups, probably towards the tail end of January into February. I appreciate your time and I'm happy to answer any questions or hear any comments from the group.
Chris, quick question. In the presentation, it kind of sounded like this fisheries management plan was contingent upon the delisting of June sucker, or are there elements of it that can be implemented between now and when that future date might occur?
Yeah, great question, Eric. I didn't mean to suggest that it was only limited to implementation once June sucker has been delisted. We are looking at it, things we can do now. Essentially, there may be some objectives that do have a time frame that trigger once it's delisted or trigger once we hit certain recovery elements identified within the June sucker recovery plan. That will yet to be seen, but we are hoping that there's going to be several things on the recreational side and the angling side that we can implement now. As we know, we'll have to have balance with June sucker recovery, and that's great. And Eric, sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but I've really been encouraging our team, if you see something that's in there that you feel like there might be a conflict, let's identify a path forward and a solution as opposed to just saying no. For example, that's where some of those data gaps and further research may be needed to identify some of these wish list items that we don't have the information that we need yet to say if they would be detrimental to Jim Circle recovery.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes.
I believe a couple meetings ago, there was a really fun video shown that could be disseminated to the public. What other sorts of messaging can we do and help with the public at large to understand the good things that are happening or the ways that they can get involved?
Absolutely. I think we are still working out our internal guidelines and plan for how to distribute this through social media. We will eventually take this through the rack and board process, but that's a long ways out there. Probably the best recommendation I could say now is sit tight till we have some information that we can share a little bit more publicly in late January or February, and then we'll be making the rounds. And I anticipate some social media posts from us, et cetera, that could be pretty easily shared. That being said, obviously you are welcome to talk about this in any of your other meetings. If there's planning efforts that would benefit from me giving a quick update or sharing some of these slides, I'd be happy to do that as well. And I have to admit, I am not an outreach expert. I'm a fisheries biologist, so I welcome all thoughts and ideas from the commission and the separate municipalities. I'd be happy to provide anything that you might need to help with that.
Some of us aren't either, and we have to hire people to do it because we're so awkward for the outreach.
In the long term, I anticipate we will have quite a bit on social media, and we'll probably put together some of our online surveys to get feedback like we do with any regulation changes or any management plans. I think the question is, how do we incorporate comments and provide the public more opportunity before we get to that point?
And Mayor Lindbergh was exactly right, Chris. We would love to help push out on our social media channels. And so anything we can do to help you, we'd be happy to.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, let's go and move on. Thank you again for your presentation. We are on item number 7, and we're doing the Utah Lake watershed situation.
All right. Thanks, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Good to see you all. I can only talk about one thing, and that's water. So here we go. What I'd like to do today is just give you a brief summary. I hit something wrong. There we go. Of where we are. There we go. On our storage and snowpack to date. So I'll just give you a quick update. Jordanelle Reservoir, you can see the difference between 2021 and 2022. A year ago, we were about 52% full. We're about 61% full at this moment. Part of that has to do with the fact that they're doing some modifications to the outlet works at Deer Creek. And so part of the water that otherwise would be in Deer Creek is stored in Jordanelle. So that's why Jordanelle is a little higher than it was last year, and Deer Creek's a little lower than it is this year. I've had a number of folks ask about why Deer Creek's so low, and that's part of the reason is the work that the Association Provo River Water Users is doing on the outlet works. Utah Lake, we're a little more than a foot lower today than we were a year ago. Strawberry Reservoir, we're almost exactly where we were last year. So we're right about 72% full, and you can see the elevations of the reservoir as we are there. This is Starvation Reservoir near Duchesne. Again, almost exactly where we were last year. This is the snowpack as of 2 days ago. And you can see the numbers, all of them across the state are above 100%, which is absolutely phenomenal and fascinating and wonderful. This represents the status of where we were last year, the little red line. And you can see we jumped up dramatically last year and then just flatlined. You can see where we are today, and that's certainly better than we were last year. And it's slightly above the magenta, the green, the light blue line that goes kind of through the middle is the median where we are under normal circumstances. So we are above that, fortunately. And now, drum roll, we hope we stay there. Just from observation, it appears that the last 20 years, we've been in a situation where we get a really significantly wet period, and then we'll go 6 weeks without a snowflake. And we're hoping that that will not be the case this year. This is a La Nina year for whatever that means. And sometimes that means something and sometimes it doesn't mean anything. I haven't found anyone who is projecting a more than or above normal precipitation this year. But to date, we're in good shape. One thing I will tell you is 100% snowpack will not produce 100% runoff. And that has to do with two things. Number one, we're in a drought, so the soils are dry. They'll take more than they otherwise would have. Secondly, our temperatures have increased and continue to increase. With increasing temperatures come drier air, so you lose more to evaporation. Soil is warmer, so you lose more to the soil. The growing season starts earlier, so you need water sooner. Growing season lasts longer because of the higher temperatures. And then the plants need more to survive because of the hotter temperatures. So if I could do anything, I would probably put 3 of these up on the 3 emojis with crossed fingers. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Gene. And we just keep hoping we get dumped on just like we did last night, right? Let's just keep it coming.
Coming this week, so that's always good.
Yeah. I always love the little snowflake that shows up on my weather app. Okay, let's go ahead and move on then to item number 8, which is the Utah Lake Commission Director's Update.
Okay.
I'll turn it to Eric.
I just have a few slides. I appreciate all the really great presentations today, but wanted to update you on a few. Here we go. A few things that are underway right now. So our shoreline restoration work, we're in grant writing season right now. So later today, I'll meet with the county and we're going to go through what this next year's work plan will look like. We are once again planning to evaluate what's on the shoreline as far as Phragmites and plan to treat that entire shoreline again this year. Each year that has a really positive impact in eliminating areas that have been treated multiple times. And then there's just areas that it seems that no matter how hard we try, we get some Phragmites regrowth. And so we'll keep pushing on that. Towards the end of the year, we'll have another Marshmaster show up. I think I mentioned earlier that we purchased one of those, and Forestry, Fire and State Lands is helping us on that purchase. As we get close to the budget year end for the Lake Commission, there's a packet of items that we would like to purchase for the Marshmaster to outfit it so that it's ready to be used. As we started the budget year, we had so much that we could dedicate in our capital projects fund. As we get close to the end of the year, I think we're going to have some leftover that we'll probably in our March meeting have a public hearing, a budget hearing, so that we can reallocate some of our leftovers as we're getting close to the end of the year to purchasing those last few items to outfit that Marshmaster. So just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention so that when we meet, you will be expecting that. And that way we can have a fully functional machine that can be added to the fleet working around the lake. Just recently, we took a tour around the lake and visited all of our access points and identified 17 of the 21 primitive access points that we would like to do some enhancements to. This includes a tree initiative And we've been meeting with multiple officials, with Congressman Curtis and other tree folks at the state, so that we can pull together a fund that will allow us to not only plant trees at some of these access points, but we went around with a consultant to kind of identify how much gravel do we need to improve the roadway out there, what other types of enhancements we would see as beneficial for some of these access points. I don't know how many of you have toured around the lake to see the access points, but there are some phenomenally gorgeous, high potential access points for future enhancements. The Knolls, which is owned by Utah County, is one of those for sure. Mulberry Beach is another. There are numerous sites, Lincoln Point, that have phenomenal potential. As development kind of heads into these areas, there's going to be huge demand, and it would be nice to get ahead of that a little bit with these areas that they could be state parks. They're gorgeous. And so we would like to get ahead of that, and we'll start working on putting together that packet and see if we can get some funding either this year or next through the legislature to help us kind of create those very desirable improvements so that they can be well used. The Nature Research Center, we're also making good progress on that. Plans are moving forward. We're wrapping up the feasibility study that will be utilized by this year's legislature and potentially next year if we don't get funded this year. We're working on developing education partnerships, USU, our local universities, to potentially pull in some education funding to help speed the process up of getting this facility built. We talked at our last meeting, this is going to be situated at the north end of the lake, kind of on the Lehigh-Saratoga border, just over into Saratoga, and adjacent to what is soon to be under construction North Saratoga Springs Marina. So this is an exciting project, more to come on that as we head into the future. But we are getting really good feedback from when we met with the governor, with our chair and vice chair, director of DNR, and then more recently with some of the school officials that are excited to see this happen. Walkera Way is also moving ahead in planning. We're very close to adopting the grazing plan for the project, just working out some last details with state lands on how we effectively get fencing in there so that it's manageable in the areas that are more prone to flooding. One of the kinks that came up that I think isn't such a big deal, but a long time ago, we thought that the federal land in the Walkera Way project area was Bureau of Reclamation. Then we discovered that it was Bureau of Land Management, and we just recently discovered that it's Bureau of Reclamation after all. And so the consultant that we have hired for this is kind of redoing a couple of their permit requests. It's very similar to BLM, so we don't lose a lot of ground, but the federal portion of it will go through Bureau of Reclamation after all. And so we're making progress there. Most of the trail alignments are close. We're working with Vineyard City right now to get some city council approvals on the features up on the north end. And then soon we'll be moving down and figuring out with Provo City where we tie that into the Provo River Delta project and how we kind of navigate the tail end, the south end of that trail. So super exciting to see it moving ahead. The other feature that we're working on is developing some enhanced wetlands down in Provo Bay that will be a huge resource for Provo Bay and the water quality in the bay, and then also potentially help to mitigate some of the trail disturbance in our Walkera Way project. So working with Division of Water Quality on some grant funding that will help us enhance some wetlands down in Provo Bay. We're crossing our fingers that works out, as well as I'm sure many of you have projects in the hopper for that grant as well.
I just had a quick question, Eric, on that in Provo Bay, since I'm not from Provo, but I know that with the increase of air traffic and the expansion of the airport, are those wetlands helping to take those waterfowl away from the airport?
The site that we've selected is on the south end of the bay. So in that respect, it would pull more away. And it's not Provo Bay, as far as scope, is approximately 4,500 acres. And the site that we're looking at is about 90 acres on the south end of the bay. So it probably is not going to have a huge impact on birds. Hopefully it doesn't attract too many and that we create a problem. But my suspicion is that the minor impact on birds, if it does anything, it'll be to draw some to the south end of the bay, and the bigger impact will be on the potential for water quality. One of the items that we're hoping to incorporate into that wetland is a partnership with Dr. Richards, who's here with us today, and that would be to along the lakeshore edge, create a pilot area for reintroducing some of the mollusk species that have been exterminated over decades past, to see if we can get some filter feeders in the lake again that sustainably filter some of that turbidity out of the water and can have, I'm sure we could get Dr. Richards one of these days to talk to us about it, but they have the potential to be very beneficial for water quality of the lake. We just need to get started on it. So,
And Eric, can I just interject with our airport and the expansion? So way back, and this is just how it was years and years ago. They just, because a bird is a danger, right, to an airplane, and if they saw one, they would shoot them. And so we don't do it that way now with our new airport. We've brought in a specialist that directs us and guides us on, and has been working with the Delta Restoration on flight patterns and how we can work together. And now we'll just give her more work, because now she's going to have to work with you to figure out, because that's the last thing we want to do is harm the wildlife, but also it's detrimental to the plains. So it's a two-way street, and we never thought we'd have to hire a specialist, but we have, and we are putting them to work on how to manage the flight patterns so we don't have any of these issues.
And to add to that, this Wacara Way project is about 700 acres. It is fully within wetlands, and as we've removed kind of the invasive Phragmites and started some grazing projects in there, a ton of the bird life has come back to that Wacara Way area. So this is West Orem, long ways away from the airport. And the success of that project will be that it brings in a lot of those shorebirds that are probably problematic down in Provo Bay, adjacent to the airport, but are perfectly situated up to the north. So the more we can do to kind of prioritize projects where there aren't those conflicts, the better. And that'll be one that definitely is helpful to diverting some of those larger birds from not hanging out around the airport.
But we do love them. They're beautiful to watch when you're out there
Sure.
at that new airport.
It's not
They're
if they're in front of
gorgeous.
your plane as you're taking off.
Yeah, that's the only problem.
Okay, Utah Lake Authority update. Just wanted to give you a couple points that we're working on right now. We provided our annual report to the Executive Appropriations Subcommittee at the legislature. That's an annual required report, and that was well received. We hired an assistant attorney general to help as per our statute, and she will begin work in January. We'll put her to work immediately. We wish we had her today, but the division that she's leaving was not excited to let her go right away. So Paula Faerber. I should know how to pronounce her last name. It's Faeber. Faerber. We've only met once in person. We've met on virtually a few times. So I need to ask her how to pronounce that, but She currently works for DOPL, Utah Division of Professional Licensing, and was ready for something different and was interested in part-time work. So she was the perfect candidate for us and came with really high recommendations. So we're excited to work with her. We also hired Jacobs Engineering, a firm that has lots of local experience working on Utah Lake for engineering and science to help us develop our management plan for the lake. And that work has begun. And just this week, we hired BWP Communications out of Salt Lake to help us with the branding development for the Lake Authority as well. So the two should go well hand in hand as we develop vision and mission through the planning process. We can hand that off to our branding specialists and they can help put together some really cool branding for us. BWP has done a lot of work with some local government officials or cities and have done some really cool work. So we had 15 applicants for our branding, which was really surprising. And so it was fun to kind of look through some really well qualified applicants and work through the selection process to end with them. And so that's set. We'll start, you'll probably hear, some of you at least, request to come help us on that process. So lastly, just wanted to thank you for all your support. Sam is going to talk about some of these beautiful photos that you've seen throughout the presentation and how you can get one. But with that, I'll end. If no questions, right?
Any questions for Eric? Just a lot of stuff going on and we love it. It's momentum and we can feel it. Yeah. So thank you. I know they work really, really hard, both Sam and Eric. All right, Sam, show us all the pretty stuff.
Thank you, Chair. Well, as Eric alluded to, I'm going to lead with the photos because those are awesome. In fact, that photo in the middle, the name that was submitted with it is the Tuscany of Utah Lake. And that really is taken at Utah Lake. That's actually just around the point from Lincoln Point on your way to Mulberry Beach. There's some orchards down there. It's an absolutely gorgeous drive. I love to send residents there. In fact, in our scavenger hunt in the summer, one of the challenges, can they visit all 27 access points within a 24-hour period? And the drive along this section of the lake is absolutely gorgeous. So those are some of our winning photos right there. And here's a couple more. We had 34 total submitted to the contest this year. We did have a few changes and some decreases in submissions. So we're evaluating some of our marketing and how we can improve that and outreach to various groups to try and help raise awareness again. For comparison, the last 2 years, submissions were more in the 80s and 90s. So a pretty significant drop. But I would say, despite the drop, I'm pretty impressed with the results from that. So we're really excited to have that. At the end of my slides, I have a QR code that you can scan to request your photo. And also in today's follow-up email, when we send you the slides from today's presentation, I'll also have the link to that form. Each of your organizations is allowed to select one photo to be put on display somewhere in your public offices. This is part of our outreach effort associated with the contest. I know every time I visit Mayor Kafusi in her office, every time it's like, oh, there's another one, and there's another one. Because she's been on the board for so long and she loves to help display those. And I'm sure she has many, many residents and visitors to her office who are impressed with the views they can see of the lake and the recreation that's featured at the lake. And so this is a great tool in helping us catch people in their day-to-day routines in various locations to be able to see all that the lake has to offer. I also wanted to hit on our podcast today, and we're going to see if this is going to work for us or not. Ooh, the mouse over here is being kind of funky. Let me see if I can set it up on my laptop here. Okay, as it's pulling up here, I'm gonna have to shift the mouse. The mouse over here is a little bit jumpy. So our podcast, the Utah Lake Facts, Fiction, and Fun podcast, is hosted by a hosting platform called Anchor, which is owned by Spotify. Okay, to give you a little background. And this is their wrapped report, which is at the end of the year, highlighting some of the successes of the podcast from the year that I wanted to share with you. So I got to click really quick here. Or actually, Eric, would you be willing to help me? If you click the jump in button at the bottom left corner, this mouse is kind of funky over here. And then at the bottom middle, once you click that, Eric, we'll just advance by clicking the down arrow to the right of the 1 of 10. So go ahead and click on it if you would. So they'll feature a few things, and I did some research based on these statistics to give you a little more detail on why we had some of these successes. So the first one I was really grateful to see is we've created 591 minutes of new content. So you compare that apparently to Spotify's analytics, that's more than 90% of other creators who qualify under the government category for their podcast. So we're really grateful for all of those who've come on and done interviews with us. And I'm very grateful to Olivia, our outreach coordinator, who's helped us in getting all of those episodes done. I think this year it was 23, if I remember correctly, 23 episodes we did this year. You can keep advancing, Eric. So I guess I was going to put this one to the board. What would be your guess between those three of what our #1 podcast was this year? There's a board member willing to venture that guess. It's okay if you get it wrong, because I did too.
I'd say lake and drought. That would be my first.
You know, that was actually my guess, and it's not correct.
We're losers then, Sam.
So it's actually, you have to click on it just to show Eric the one on the, oh, sorry, go back one. Hit the up arrow. There we go. It's actually the one on the left, episode 59, Saratoga Springs Lakeshore Project. So Councilman Chris Karn, you can, exactly. There you go. You helped with that. So Eric, if you click on it, it just displays a little additional information. Oh, you're good. Don't worry about it. So it was really cool to see that I'm guessing a lot of Saratoga residents were interested in this, especially because I checked. We actually did not promote that. We skipped that one for some reason. I don't know if we forgot that day, but we did not put it on our social media channels. So it was really impressive to see how much that must have been shared around organically, because we did not promote that particular episode.
Oh, the Jeremy Lappin.
Yes. Yep. That was where Jeremy Lappin came on and talked about all of the projects that are going on the Saratoga Springs shoreline currently. You go to the next one, Eric. So this next one just highlights that apparently we do have some listeners around the world. So we'll just skip over this really quick, but we had listeners in 5 countries, top of 3, obviously the United States. That's like 98, 99% of our listenership. And then we've got a few other countries that are highlighted too. The next one is, let me see if I'm remembering. Yep. So our listeners, this was an interesting one for me. During the week of June 5th to June 11th, we had an increase with 238% more listeners than our average week. So I went back and checked. This is actually the week of our scavenger hunt. So when we ran the scavenger hunt, a couple of the missions required people to go listen to an episode and provide some feedback. So I was really pleased to see that that did help my goal, which was getting more listeners on our podcast. So we're really excited to see that went well. And then on this one, actually, I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer for the sake of time. It's actually 35%, which is just these are listeners who follow the podcast. So they're being notified, and that is only on Spotify. Spotify listenership over the lifetime of our podcast, the last 3 years, only makes up about 11% of our listenership, according to their statistics. 51% of it comes from iTunes. You can only imagine the numbers that come from other listening platforms as well. Eric, if you continue, it just talks a little bit about what our listeners are like. I think, how do they put it? Enthusiastic, I think is their word choice. Let's see what it shows here again. The enthusiast. So basically that the people, according to their demographics and what they track, they're super fans. They listen as soon as new episodes come out. They're one of the first to know, and they want to show their support. So excited to hear that although our listenership is small, they are super fans according to Spotify. Just a couple more slides here.
Just think what branding's gonna.
Exactly, right? It's going to help it that much more. 97% of our current listeners discovered us in 2022. Part of why I think this happened, because it looks like we don't have a lot of ongoing listeners then from previous years. We actually had a pretty significant time break where we weren't able to put new content up for about 6 months in 2021. And so I think we did have a drop off as a result of that. And again, featuring their Saratoga Springs, Councilman Karn, that 9% of our current listeners started with that episode first on Spotify. So really glad to see that shared around. And no, I have not been working out to answer that question, but the podcast has been. So we gained 27% in followers. So we are seeing an increase, slow but steady, in that reaching to more people. And so we're always grateful for everyone's efforts in sharing that information around. And I think this might be our last one here. Yep. So these are just some quick last statistics to finish up. The last couple of slides aren't relevant to our discussion today, but it just says that we're a top 10 podcast for 56 of our regular going fans, top 5 for 42 of them, and we're the #1 podcast for 18 of our fans. So if I can meet those 18 people, we're gonna have a super fan club of some kind for the Utah Lake podcast. Maybe we'll do I don't know, a podcast episode with them or something. But it's been a great experience. I personally host the episodes, but Olivia does all of our editing, and most of our episodes are interviews with individuals from a lot of your organizations. Chris Crockett's been on there once before that's done an interview. Melissa Stamp from earlier in the meeting has done several with me. It's been really great to be involved in this. And fits well within our objectives of trying to provide concise but in-depth sound bites that people can learn more about what's going on. Like Jeremy Lappin's interview, trying to teach people these are all the different things Saratoga is doing on their shoreline, or talking with Chris Crockett about fishing and the work that's going on in the Fishery Advisory Committee. And so it's been a great tool for us, and we're excited to keep it going in 2023. So those are the 2 items I had. I will go back to our slide. And as I mentioned, that QR code, if you want to scan that now with your smartphone, you can. And that's just, it displays I think we have 16 of the photos available there that you can pick from. We typically get those ordered over the winter time and have them ready at the March meeting so that you all can pick that up. And we thank you for your support in getting those up and about, and your support in general for the commission and the work we do.
Any questions for Sam? Okay, thank you, Sam, for your hard work as well. We appreciate it. All right, item number 10, our governing board meeting schedule for the rest of the fiscal year 2023. Our next meeting will be March 16th, 2023 at 11:30 a.m. and it will be here. So Jane, thank you for allowing us to use this beautiful building. After that, it'll be April 13th at 6 p.m. We're having a celebratory banquet for the Utah Lake Commission Board for it to celebrate its 15 years of success. So we look forward to more details on that. And then now we just will open it up to the general public. Does anybody have any comments? We will allow 2 minutes. If you're in person, you're just welcome to come up to the microphone and state your name and the city you're from, and we'll give you your 2 minutes. If you're online, it is the same rules. State your name and you also will get 2 minutes to share. Sam, do we have any online?
I don't see them online. Oh, we have a hand raised. Richard Fogio.
Okay. Welcome, Richard. Can you hear me? I think you're on mute.
Thank you for the technical advice.
I'm always happy to help. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've got 2 shout outs and one question. First of all, thanks to everyone for providing the updates on the great work, especially the Provo River Delta team. I was there a few weeks ago as a guest of the Utah Anglers Clubs, specifically High Country and Bonneville Fly Fishers. And it's an awesome project. It's doubly awesome when you're there in person. And, you know, I just hope that the new ULA can use this project as a example as you go through the management plan. Because I think it's a good model for future projects, especially where the ULA can finance through its bonding authority and perhaps get some of these generational type projects completed. My second shout out is to Keith Hambrick and Jake Johnson, our Utah County weed supervisors, for the fantastic job they're doing on Phragmites destruction, as well as a shout out to the Saratoga Fire Department. And then finally, my question is really for Director McKay for the water quality update. This is the 3rd update we've heard indicating a roadblock delay. And I was hoping either the ULC board and or the public could get a specific identification of the delay, because there's a number of rumors running around as to the entity causing the delay, and perhaps it was instrumental in several of the scientists leaving the scientific committee. So my question is can more specific details on the delay for the water quality project be made available? Thank you very much.
Sure. I'm be happy to try to provide an update on that. First, science is hard. That's why we're here. And we have a panel of experts working in an area that is kind of new. And so it's a challenging thing to work in this sort of new area and come to grips. As far as the delay goes, I suppose if anyone is to blame, it's me. I asked the science panel to take a deeper dive into a large data set that they were, I think, maybe feeling comfortable with some decisions, and asked them to revisit some questions. And so they had stepped back and really dug in, but it's challenging. There is not agreement. I suppose it's a spectrum of scientific views or opinions on how to address these data. But we're working hard. We're coming together. Everybody is playing well together. And I think the third part was the environment in the science panel. The cause for 3 science panel members leaving, absolutely not. There were personal reasons, including health reasons, end of career, need to explore other things. So I am very optimistic that it'll just be 2 or 3 more weeks to get this particular bow wrapped around this package. So thanks for your question.
Thank you very much.
You have one more hand online, Soren Simonson.
Okay, fantastic. Soren, can you hear me?
I can. I'll just be really brief. I just want to thank the Utah Lake Commission for amazing work that you do. We're a peer organization at the Jordan River Commission. The Utah Lake Commission served as a model for our organization a little over a decade ago. And as you're wrapping up your work as a commission and transitioning to an authority, I just wanted to really express thanks and affirm really important work that you do. We're obviously closely connected to it, so we take great interest in all that's going on there. And Eric has been a great kind of peer and mentor for me as well. And I just want to acknowledge your great work. And we'll look forward to continue working with you as the authority. But just a special commendation for being a great organization and doing so many wonderful things for our environment and recreation users.
Thank you. All right. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. At this point, we will take a motion to adjourn. And a second. And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for coming today.